Welcome to Sapphire Ridge News. Give us a few seconds for people to pile in. Welcome, Julianne. So let's see if we can get this horse out the barn today. Today's topic is the EPA versus Stacey Abrams. Why? I was going to cover something else, and then I seen this report this morning that showed that Lee Zeldin at the EPA found that they were funneling money to a nonprofit owned by Stacey Abrams, who on TV she said she didn't own it, that she had no affiliation or contact with them. Well, then how come her name is on their paperwork? That's just weird. But it goes to show you how much the Democrats are how's the right way to word this? They've been caught funneling money from the different government agencies to specific candidates, which should be illegal, yet they don't seem to understand that what they're doing is illegal. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. It's kind of weird that when they're caught, they say, "Oh no, I'm not connected to that group. I don't have nothing to do with them." But their name's on the paperwork. Make that make sense, you know what I mean? Now their name's on the paperwork, yet they're not connected or affiliated with that group. That doesn't make sense. If their name is on the paperwork, that means they are connected to that group. Whether they want to admit it or not is another thing. But if their name is on the paperwork, well, yeah, they're connected. And the fact that Lee Zeldin, the administrator of the EPA, found money being funneled to Stacey Abrams' group that she says she has nothing to do with, for. Then she says that the money that she was getting was to help people winterize their home. Well, that has nothing to do with the EPA. Not a thing at all. The EPA doesn't give you money to winterize your home. These people lie and lie and lie. And then they swear they're telling you the truth when they're lying to your face. You know, I was really proud last night that President Trump honored Lake and Riley's family, honored, uh, oh, how was her name pronounced? Nungoya, honored her family, honored this little boy named DJ, who's a 13-year-old brain cancer survivor. And the Democrats did not cheer for them once. Not once. Young man looked like he was about 18 or 19, had been trying and trying to get into West Point, and they wouldn't return his phone calls. And President Trump made some phone calls and told that young man last night that he had been accepted to West Point and that he was a cadet. Not one Democrat cheered, smiled. They weren't, hey Zach, they weren't proud for that young man to get into West Point. The Democrats last night were all around disgraceful. But when Trump talked about how much money had been given to Ukraine, they jumped up and cheered. But yet, the American citizens that were, affected by, so Laken Riley's mom and her and her sister was there. Corey Comparator and his wife, his widow, and his two daughters were there. Trump pointed them out and told them how brave they were. Not one Democrat cheered for them. That's disgraceful. You know? Then had this little boy who was 13 years old that was a brain cancer survivor. Hello, Julianne. And, it was very moving because he said all he ever wanted to do is be a police officer. And so Trump made him an honorary Secret Service agent. And Julianne, I found out, remember that one young man that got accepted to be a cadet? He had been calling West Point. He had applied to West Point, and they wouldn't return his phone calls. And yeah, I just watched that. Um, he West Point would not return this young man's phone calls. And so President Trump called and inquired, and they told President Trump he was accepted. Yeah, another thing to audit, West Point. Get on it, Hegseth. Audit West Point. Right? But today's topic is um, EPA versus Stacey Abrams. I found out some things this morning because I was going to talk about something else, but then when I found this out, I said, I got to talk to my people about the EPA versus Stacey Abrams. Lee Zeldin Lee Zeldin found that the EPA had been sending money to a nonprofit linked to Stacey Abrams. They had sent them billions of dollars. No, not billions, millions, like $70 million. Stacey Abrams says, I'm not affiliated with them. Her name is on the papers creating the nonprofit. So that means she's affiliated. Yeah. Her charity had $100 prior, and now it's got $70 million in the bank. But she says, oh no, all they do is help people get uh, some kind of improvements for their home, like new windows and stuff like that. The EPA doesn't do that. The EPA doesn't help you get windows, and she's a bit off her rocker. But then we knew that, right? We knew that Stacey Abrams was off her rocker. Right. I was just talking about that before you and Zach signed on. All these Democrats set up these fake charities, and then they get these different government agencies to funnel money into their charities, and that's their personal slush fund. Well, there has to be an investigation before there can be criminal charges, Zach. But I agree with that. There should be criminal charges. You know, start investigating some of these people, just like, when they threw Al Green out of the speech last night. the liberal media was trying to say, oh, they just threw him out. Wrong. He was standing up, refused to sit down, shouting at the president. He was warned by Speaker Johnson that he would have decorum and that he needed to sit down. And then he warned him and told him, that's your one warning. If you continue, I will call the House, the Sergeant at Arms, and that's what he ended up doing. Called the Sergeant of Arms and had him removed from the speech. Yeah, he kept shouting, no mandate, no mandate. But then when he got outside, he said he was meaning to say no mandate to cut Medicaid or some stupid shit. These people are just so disgusting. Um, he was, well, what I understand is that he was told, you either resign or we will fire you. And just because he resigned doesn't mean he's exempt from charges. Yeah. Um, I watch Emily Jasinski on Undercurrents on YouTube. She was funny this morning. She said, these signs are so stupid. She said, this is a meme factory. These Democrats sitting with all these signs. And she said, it won't go well at their next election because they will show them sitting there with these signs. Right. And that's what I think he will get investigated for. You know, dig in, resist Trump, and then holding back the Epstein files. Yeah, I heard that Kamala begged them and that Nancy Pelosi also begged them, and they did it anyhow. I watched Lou on LB Nation this morning, and he said it's because of things like this that Democrats will not win elections. Um, I'm not sure if they're still around, but there's one video that was supposed to be at Epstein's Island, and it showed some pretty young girls, uh, walking around in their underwear. Right. I I agree with that. Nancy plays with her mouth, and it's like she's tweaking. But they ignored her, and they acted up anyhow. And when they, um, I forget what uh, YouTube channel I was watching this morning, showed that when they started acting up, that Nancy actually started crying. She had her hand in her head, and she was crying. Yeah, he's very. I won't say how old because I don't want to get my channel in trouble. I'll just say some very, very young girls were sitting on stages, sliding across stages, in some sitting in some pretty provocative poses, if you get my drift. Yeah, she knows the party is doomed. And I think she was doing her best to try to make them wake up, and they just didn't listen to her. You had idiots like Jasmine Crockett out in the hall spouting some off the wall nonsense. And I liked what one of the people said in the chat this morning on Robert Govea. Said they showed Jasmine Crockett, and one of the people in chat said, "Oh, look, Ghetto came to Washington instead of Smith came to Washington." But right, that's right. Comey's daughter is the lead prosecutor in the Epstein cases in New York. Yeah. Okay, so here's something else I found out about Ghislaine. I think that's how her name is pronounced. I've heard Ghislaine and I've heard Jelaine. Um, Jelaine's dad is Mossad, and I watched Patrick Bet David. yesterday, the Valuetainment podcast, and he said people have got this all turned around. He said Ghislaine didn't work for Epstein. Epstein worked for Ghislaine. That through her dad, they hired Epstein to get backdoors into all these different countries around the world. And that's when the Jeffrey's Island pedo stuff started in, that they were using that to draw in the world leaders and get them on tape doing stuff with, underage. And then when they speak up, they send them a copy of the tape. And they said that every inch of every mansion that Epstein owned had cameras everywhere. And the island had cameras. That when well, I'm sure that Jeffrey probably lied and said, no, there's no cameras. Don't you think? To get them in these compromising situations when all the while they're being filmed. Right. He had cameras in his places back in the 90s. When he got busted in South Florida in 98, that's when they found the cameras everywhere. And there's videotape of them carrying out boxes. I think there were, because he had connections. And the one videotape that I saw looked like they call it Fun Island in Turkey. I think that's what it's called. I wouldn't. That wouldn't surprise me. Um, but the one videotape that they're trying to say is uh, Jeffrey's Pedo Island. Um, they have now said that it's Fun Island. That's a resort in Turkey. Well, see, with Jeffrey, everybody knew that he was the guy to go to for this kind of stuff. Right, right, Julianne. Look at how easily they are drawn to drugs and sex. Look at how easily. And Hollywood, Hollywood is just as bad. I listen to, see now, uh, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brett Cooper. Um, I really like Brett Cooper. Right. Let me tell you about a story that Brett Cooper told. See, she was a child star in Hollywood, but she was raised conservative. And at a very young age, her mom took her to some classes for self defense. And so she was self aware that nobody should touch your private parts, even when she was 12 and 13. She had already been taught that's not okay. So her friend was having lunch with uh, some Hollywood writers and wanted her to go along. She said she thought that the girl's mom was going to be there and everything would be kosher. She said no, it was just her and the girl and the writer. And she said she had to listen all through lunch about this writer talk about that his next role for the two of them was for them to be lovers. And she said, I was really grossed out by it, but I knew that my friend needed another part. So she said, I was okay until we went to leave. She said, and he put his hand in my back pocket. And I smacked his hand and told him, get your hand off me. That's not okay. She said, he didn't think twice. He pivoted and put his hand in her friend's back pocket. And her friend told her, don't say nothing. I need this part. And she said, okay. And she said, I had to walk out of the restaurant with them walking in front of her and him groping her as they walked out the door. She said, I went home and told my mom I want out of here. She said, because the deal her and her mom had was that she could stay in Hollywood until she wanted out. She said, at that point, I wanted out. So I told my mom, I want out. Let's get out of here. And she said, we moved to Nashville. But she said, that's normal for them. She said, they do that all the time. They groom these young child stars, and they do that all the time. They all do it out there. She said, so don't let these Hollywood actors say, oh no, we've never seen that, blah, blah, blah. She said, they all do it. It's normal. And I agree, Julianne, it's sick. When I heard that, I prayed for her. even though she's out of it at scene now, you know, I still feel sometimes when the mood hits you, you need to pray for people. But all this stuff is going on, and it's all sick and disturbing, and it's going on right underneath our noses at times, and we don't even know it. Now, I don't know why that does that, but it's very, very disturbing. You know, and it's much worse. From what I've read, it's much worse in Europe. Some countries in Europe, the age of consent is 14. And in Europe, in TV ads and stuff, they have full frontal nudity in Europe. Blank checks sent to who? I seen it, you said sent by the Treasury, but sent to who? They looted the cookie jar, they have to pay. Yep. Yeah, there's been innuendo about pedo stuff in Hollywood since I was a teenager, and I'm 64. 60, just turned 65. Yes, it was a very good press conference today. I watched most of it on Robert Gouveia. And Caroline, she really is a breath of fresh air. She calls them out for their behavior, but she doesn't do it in a mean fashion. She just calls them out for it and points out, you know, but she's not mean about it. You know what I mean? Like Trump last night saying that he could cure the worst disease in the world, and not one of you people, and pointed to the Democrats, would smile, stand up, clap, cheer, and they wouldn't. Yeah, the only problem was none of them had doctors in my county. Only one, Blue Cross Blue Shield. The other said, well, we can sign you up, but we don't have coverage in your county. I said, well, then, stupid, you ain't signing me up. Yeah, she's only 27. And she was the public spokesman for Trump's campaign. She never had a national type job before. Yeah, that's true, Julianne. At 64 and a half, you get hit with a boatload of stuff on Medicare. See, I'm on Social Security disability, so I already had Medicare, but I had Humana, and Humana pulled out of our county and didn't tell anyone. I always call Social Security. Their stupid log on before. You had to put in a password, and then you had so many seconds, or make a password rather, and then when you logged on, you had so many seconds to put in the password. And then if you don't put in the password in that seconds, it locks you out for 24 hours. That was the old system. So I just call them after I cussed them out for that. After I cussed them out for their stupidness. Hold on. Told them the VA treats people better than they do. Told them the VA, you log on, you create your username, create your own password, it saves it. You don't have all this nonsense. And the girl said, well, we have much more people than the VA does. I said, and that right there is part of the problem, your attitude. Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. 165,000 people over the age of 160. I don't know anybody over the age of much over the age of 100, right? Yeah. And One statistic, there was it 300? No, it was at 300. Our country isn't 300 years old. Social Security isn't, but about, let's see, it was created in 1930 or 32. So Social Security isn't even 200 years old. So how could there be people 300 years old on Social Security when it hasn't been around that long, right? Yeah, 60 million more active Social Security numbers than there are people on 390 million active. And that's 60 million more than the actual number of citizens in the country, right? Right. Somebody's getting the illegal checks. A lot of people in California are supposedly getting um, Social Security checks because Kamala in Gavin, the deal I heard was that Kamala would help draw them into um, California, and then they would give them Social Security and Medicare. Wow, I didn't hear that one. So she's getting, so Omar is getting checks from her dead grandmother. That I did not hear. So which place is getting an audit into their election? There's a lot of places that need to have their elections audited. Voting machine audit. Yeah, but Gavin has said he'll veto it. Voter ID will stop a lot of election fraud because they have to show ID to show they they are who they say they are. Like here in Montana, we have to show our license to vote, and they have to match up your signature and address on your license with what's on the voter card. It should be you go and you vote, and that day you know the results. Really, he said he was going to veto it. That he felt that, well, how was he worded it? He's so dumb like a fox. He says stupid stuff. I did not know that Trump seized control of the water. He had talked about it, about opening the floodgates up north and redirecting the water down through the Central Valley. And Newsom had told Trump that it would take forever to rebuild the half pipes. And Trump told him, you ain't got to rebuild them. The half pipes are already there. You just ain't been using them. I sometimes try to catch Carl DeMaio. Yeah, guess who said they're running for president in 2028? Tim Walz. That's a destined to fail, right? Yeah, I saw some pics of the water, but I wasn't sure if they were real or if they were AI. Hold on, I got to change the my my ear pods are running out of battery. Hold on a second. There. Okay. Switch to the iPad. I love these earpods. I can usually get them to go 2 hours on a charge, sometimes 2.5. But I forgot to plug them in last night after we did our stream. Yeah, the pic that I saw was of the canals, and it showed water in the canals, but I wasn't sure if that was real or not. They'd been empty for so long, you know what I mean? Yeah, I switched over to the iPad mic because the battery on the earpods was getting low. No, yeah, it gets like that whenever the batteries in them get low. When they're fully charged, they don't sound like that. They actually sound better. Okay, I will. I need to get a set of the Apple iPods. Static now? Yeah, I was going to get a set of the Apple iPods because I have an iPad and I'm going to be getting a MacBook. But I looked up the price of the Apple iPods, they're $169. Yeah, that's because the furnace just kicked on. And I got um, the vent is right back over here. Here, let me try some. Is that a little better? Yeah, vets get us for our fur babies, don't they, Zach? Yeah, yep, they do. They know we'll pay for it. Like uh, my dog is suffered with an ear infection on and off for the past several months, and I got tired of the attitude from both the vets in town. So I started basically self-doctoring it, and I got this peroxide spray from Walmart. I just put a little bit in each ear, and in a day or so, the smell goes away. He gets a ear infection and it has a real bad odor. Within a day after putting that spray in, that all goes away. Yeah, that's right. And the dentist thinks they are surgeons. I'm lucky that the VA pays for my dental care, but I've heard people talk about, yeah, I think it's a yeast infection, but the local vet wanted to swab his ears, look at it under a microscope to see if it was a yeast infection or bacterial, and just $200 to look at it under a microscope, and then medications would be on top of that and the office visit. Yeah, he has floppy ears and long hair on his ears. In the summertime, I think I'm going to have to trim the hair on his ears. But I heard about a vet in Forsyth, which is 50 miles to the west of me, that's really friendly, animal oriented. So I'm going to try to get a hold of them this afternoon and talk to them, see what their prices are, that kind of stuff, see what their policies are. Both of the vets here in town are money due at the time of service, or don't bring your dog in. That really floored me when I told her that he has a real bad ear infection and he keeps digging and gouging at his ears, but I don't get paid till the end of the month. And she said, "Well, money is due at the time of service. We'll just make you an appointment for next month." That kind of did me in with them, because if you're a dog lover like most of us are, we want our dog looked at, but sometimes we don't have all of the money. And it's not that we won't pay it, but we want to be able to pay it when our check deposits. And they said, nope. So I found that to be a bit ridiculous. See, in Florida, they have places where you can go and take your dog in and have it looked at, and you just pay like $25, and then they cover the rest of it. Might be a shelter, but they give uh, vet care to those who need it. All you have to do is call them, and you can come and bring your dog in. But apparently they don't have that kind of thing here. Which is frustrating for those of us that own pets. Yeah, that's how true charities used to work. You know, and they had a place in Florida that would you could bring your dog or cat in and have it spayed or neutered, and as long as you made a payment, like say it was going to be $300, as long as you brought them $100, they would cover the rest of it. Yeah, both the vets up here, though, said all of it up front, or don't bring your dog in. Not a payment. They wanted all of it, not a pre-payment, rather. They wanted all the money up front at the time of visit, or don't bring your dog in, which I thought was graceful. Here you are, you're a vet. You say that you love animals, but then if you don't have the money, don't bring your dog here. I just thought that whole attitude was rather disgusting. Because you want to take your dog or cat to a vet that cares about your animal and doesn't care about the money. Not here. Not here. They don't have low income spay or neuter programs here. You got to pay it up front. I wish they did have a low income vet clinic here, but they don't. Right. And it's not fair for me to compare vets in Florida to vets here. Because vets in Florida, some are good, some are not good. There was one place that run a wildlife sanctuary that had a vet there that when she did dog neuters. She would sedate them, not wait until they were under, and cut the sac open, rip the testicles out, and then use super glue and tape it up. No stitches. And one of the girls that worked there that I was friends with told me that's how they did my dog. I never went back there. Well, I'm going to get off of here. This has been fun. I will see you tomorrow at the same time. I'll get my ducks in a row and get the schedule done this evening. So I'll see you tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.